The murder of Barbara Barnes, a schoolgirl lost. The vanishing on Jefferson Street. Before we start, hit that subscribe button. You'll want to remember this one, because not everyone in this story made it home. December 7th, 95, Steubenville, Ohio. The morning was gray, the kind of winter sky that swallowed sound. 13-year-old Barbara Barnes pulled her denim jacket tighter as she walked down Jefferson Street toward Wells Middle School. She carried her books in one arm, lunch bag in the other. It was 7:15 a.m. The air was cold enough to sting her fingers. Neighbors remembered seeing her pass by the bakery, waving like she always did. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. When Barbara didn't show up to class, teachers assumed she was sick. But by afternoon, panic was setting in. Her grandfather, a well-known man in the community, called police. Officers combed through the small town, the streets, the woods, the riverbank. But there was nothing. No footprints, no backpack, just silence. Steubenville was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, or thought they did. But now, whispers spread fast. People locked their doors, kids walked in groups. And for the first time, the town realized evil didn't always come from outside. Sometimes, it lived right next door. Police questioned the family first. Barbara lived with her grandfather after her parents' divorce. He told investigators she was bright, shy, and cautious. She never took rides from strangers. That made her disappearance even harder to explain. Detectives expanded the search radius. Volunteers fanned out into the woods, dragging flashlights through thick snow. Days turned into weeks. Christmas came and went. The lights that once glowed cheerfully in windows now flickered behind curtains drawn in fear. Then, on January 3rd, 96, nearly a month later, a local man walking near Wills Creek stumbled upon something tangled in the reeds. He thought it was debris at first, until he saw a strand of long brown hair frozen into the ice. Police arrived within minutes. The current was slow that day, and the site was almost too still. Wrapped in a tattered sheet, partially submerged beneath the frozen surface, was the body of Barbara Barnes. The water had preserved her face in a haunting calm, her eyes closed as if asleep. The autopsy confirmed what everyone feared. Barbara had been murdered. The exact details were withheld, but investigators revealed enough to fuel dread. She had been strangled. The discovery shattered the illusion of safety. For a town that hadn't seen a major crime in years, it felt like a nightmare they couldn't wake from. And the horror only deepened when the FBI joined in, suggesting the possibility that Barbara's case might be connected to other unsolved murders of young girls across Ohio and Pennsylvania. Reporters swarmed the small police station, chasing quotes, pressing for answers. The family asked for privacy, but rumors refused to die. Some pointed fingers at outsiders, drifters, truckers, strangers passing through. Others whispered darker theories, that the killer was one of their own. Barbara's grandfather, once beloved in the neighborhood, found himself under quiet suspicion. His stoic demeanor, his short temper, his proximity to the girl's daily routine, all of it drew the wrong kind of attention. Police questioned him for hours, but no charges were ever filed. Still, in the eyes of some, that silence spoke louder than any confession. Days later, a shocking piece of evidence surfaced. A torn section of fabric found near the creek, identical to a curtain from the Barnes home. Investigators couldn't explain how it got there. Coincidence? Or proof that the killer had been inside her house? The lead detective, Mark Danny, Els, stood by the riverbank that night, staring at the water's slow, dark current. Snowflakes drifted across the surface like ash. "Whoever did this," he said quietly, "didn't just take her life. They took this town's peace with it." But then came the next revelation, one that would send the entire investigation spiraling into confusion and fear once again. Because when detectives reviewed nearby security footage from a gas station that morning, they saw something strange. Barbara wasn't walking alone, the man in the shadow. Oh, when the grainy security footage played on the small monitor inside the Steubenville Police Department, every officer in the room went silent. The timestamp read 7:18 a.m., December 7th, 1995, the morning Barbara Barnes vanished. The video showed her walking briskly past a gas station, books clutched close to her chest, but just behind her, partially hidden by the fog, was a tall figure in a dark coat. He trailed her from a distance, never too close, never too far. Each time she slowed, he slowed too. Each time she turned, he looked away. The tape was low resolution, and the face was impossible to make out, but one thing was clear: Barbara hadn't been alone. Detectives froze the frame and enhanced the image, but the man remained a blur. No one recognized him. Not the store clerk, not the neighbors, not even the family. It was as if he'd stepped out of the fog and vanished back into it. The lead investigator, Mark Daniels, sent stills to the FBI. Within a week, they returned a report. There had been similar disappearances across the state line. Girls aged 11 to 15, taken in daylight, bodies found weeks later near rivers or creeks. The details were eerily familiar. As word spread, panic tightened its grip on Steubenville. Parents began walking their children to school again. Strangers were eyed with suspicion. The once peaceful streets now felt like hunting grounds. Meanwhile, Barbara's grandfather, Walter Barnes, became increasingly withdrawn. He stopped answering the phone, stopped attending church. Reporters parked outside his home day and night, cameras aimed at the front porch. "He knows more than he's saying," one neighbor whispered to another. Detective Daniels hated rumors, but he couldn't ignore the inconsistencies in Walter's statements. The man claimed he'd been asleep when Barbara left for school, but a neighbor swore she had seen his truck running that morning, idling in the driveway at 6:45. When questioned again, Walter's story changed slightly. He said he had gotten up early to start his truck because of the cold. It wasn't unusual, he insisted, but Daniels noticed his hands shaking, not from age or chill, but from fear. The investigation took a darker turn when police searched Walter's old storage shed near the river. Inside, under a tarp, they found something that made every officer stop in place: a broken belt, its buckle bent and twisted. Tests later revealed faint traces of fabric matching the curtain fragment found near Barbara's body. But the DNA results were inconclusive, too old, too degraded. The evidence proved nothing, but suspicion spread like wildfire. That night, Detective Daniels sat alone in his car, staring at Barbara's school photo, her shy smile, her neat hair, the innocence frozen in time. "Someone wanted her gone," he muttered, "but someone also wanted us to think we found the truth." A week later, another tip came in, from a man claiming he'd seen Barbara get into a gray sedan near the corner of Jefferson and Main. He didn't get the plate number, but he remembered one thing: there was a cross pendant hanging from the rearview mirror. The clue led detectives to a local repair shop, where the owner admitted working on a gray sedan belonging to a drifter named Carl Hewitt, who had left town days after the disappearance. Hewitt had a minor record: trespassing, assault, theft. Nothing that screamed killer, but his timing, his car, and his sudden vanishing act made him their best lead yet. FBI agents traced Hewitt to a small town across the Pennsylvania border. When they arrived, his rented room was empty, clothes gone, bed unmade. The only thing left behind was a newspaper clipping. It was an article about Barbara Barnes's funeral. The next morning, a fisherman in Wheeling, West Virginia, called police to report a disturbing find. Tangled in his net was a school ID badge, cracked, water-stained, and unmistakable. The photo on it was faded, but the name beneath was clear: Barbara Barnes. For detectives, it was the confirmation that her killer was still moving, watching, taunting them. And that's when a new letter arrived at the Steubenville Police Department. No return address, no signature, just a single sentence written in red ink. "She isn't the only one." The letter in red. The letter was short, just 9 words, but it hit the Steubenville Police Department like a storm. "She isn't the only one." Detective Mark Daniels stared at it for nearly a full minute before touching it. The handwriting was shaky but deliberate. The red ink bled into the paper like veins. There was no return address, no fingerprints, no DNA. Whoever wrote it knew exactly how to hide. The department called in the FBI immediately. Agents swept through the building, analyzing every detail. The envelope's postmark traced back to Wheeling, West Virginia, the same area where Barbara's school ID had been found days earlier. To Daniels, that wasn't coincidence. It was a message. The press got wind of the letter before the FBI could even confirm its authenticity. Within hours, reporters filled the parking lot. The story exploded again. The river killer strikes twice? Is a serial predator stalking Ohio? Headlines screamed across every newspaper. Daniels wasn't ready to say those words out loud, but deep down, he knew this wasn't just about Barbara anymore. He and Agent Valerie Cross drove out to Wheeling, retracing the route where the ID badge had surfaced. The road followed the river for miles, dark water moving slow beneath skeletal winter trees. When they reached the small bridge near the fisherman's dock, Valerie noticed something half buried in the mud below. It was another piece of fabric, pink with a floral pattern. It looked old, fragile, and familiar. When they brought it to the lab, testing confirmed it matched fibers from Barbara's school bag. The river had carried more than her ID, it had carried her story. Later that night, Daniel sat in his office surrounded by old case files, other missing girls from the region. Names like Lisa, Emily, and Jane scrawled across faded folders. All young, all gone, all near water. He spread the PH, Odos, across his desk, tracing the river routes on a map. Each red pin marked a tragedy. The pattern was unmistakable. But then he noticed something strange. Each disappearance occurred within a few miles of an old steel plant, the same company that Barbara's grandfather had worked for years ago. Daniels froze. He had seen this connection before, but never noticed how close it ran. Could it be coincidence? Or was someone targeting the same communities? Workers, families, children of that generation? He revisited Walter Barnes, Barbara's grandfather, now frail and silent in his recliner. The man's eyes looked hollow, the weight of loss crushing him. Daniel showed him the letter. "Do you know who might have written this?" he asked. Walter looked up slowly. "I don't," he whispered, "but I think I know why they sent it." Daniels leaned forward. "Why?" Walter's hands trembled as he spoke. "Because whoever did this, they were here before, long before Barbara. They know this town. They know where we hide our sins." The room fell silent. Outside, a cold wind howled through the broken screen door. A week later, another package arrived at the police station. Inside was a cassette tape labeled "Simply Play Me." The audio was faint, static, water, distant footsteps, and then a man's voice, distorted but steady. "You look for monsters in the dark, but the monsters are the ones you let inside your homes." The voice paused. Then came a chilling sound, a young girl humming what seemed like a lullaby. Daniel slammed the stop button, his pulse racing. Forensics traced the tape's plastic casing to a small electronics store that had gone out of business a decade earlier, the only one of its kind within 50 miles, located in Wheeling. Daniels and the FBI raided the area around the abandoned shop the next morning. Behind the store was a narrow trail leading down to the riverbank, hidden by overgrown weeds and rusted barrels. There, half buried in the dirt, they found a shallow pit lined with broken concrete. Inside were fragments, old, tattered clothing, a shoe, and a small silver necklace engraved with the initials B.B. Barbara Barnes. The silence that followed was suffocating. The case that had haunted the town for years had come full circle, yet the killer's face remained invisible. Later, when Daniels returned to his office, he found one last envelope waiting on his desk. No one saw who delivered it, no one signed for it. He opened it slowly. Inside was a photograph, a blurry image of the river taken from across the bank. In the lower corner, a shadowy figure stood watching, and at the bottom, written in that same red ink, "She isn't the only one." Detective Daniels looked up toward the darkened window of his office, the reflection of the photo trembling in his hand. Somewhere outside, in the freezing night air, he could swear he saw movement, a faint silhouette standing across the street, just out of reach. And then it was gone. The river kept flowing, just as it always had, slow, dark, and endless, carrying its secrets beneath the ice. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe before the shadows find you first.